G'day, bigalstory here. Got another story for you, a spoken word one. I'm currently on the train bridge. That's what I would call up the river. That goes inland. That way there goes to the ocean. Brisbane's that way. And we're in Ipswich. And I've got a story for you. I'm going to clap to show you that the story has started. And it's just so, because I speak in a very casual way, when I clap, it just means, yes, we've started. So, I'm going to pop this down here. Oh, let's do it this side. Actually, I'm going to tell you the title of the story. It may change depending on your feedback and just what I reckon. But yeah, the title of the story is Backseat Drivers Molongolo, and hopefully that makes more sense as we get going. Anyway, I can't clap with one hand. So this is a story of how I came to be living in Sydney here, and yeah, just the series of events that got me to here. So it all started back when I was working in Canberra, Capital Territory down there, and I was going for my morning walk, and I didn't think I was doing anything weird. I was going for a walk in the morning, and then all this series of events happened. Oh, there's people walking through the bush over there. I might follow them. Anyway, so this is the story of how I came to be living in Sydney, in the job I'm currently in, and you know, how my life came to be. So I was living in Canberra, and I went for my morning walk, and I don't believe that this is that silly, but when I go for a walk, I go barefoot. And it looks a little bit strange, and I guess in Canberra, most of the people there are just a little bit uptight, so it probably looks a little bit more out of place than normal, but I dress pretty respectfully, I have bare feet, and I go for my walk. The thing that I used to think was even a bit weirder, but I didn't think anyone could see it, was the fact that I didn't really have a definite pattern of when I'd go. It wasn't a daily thing, it wasn't a weekly thing, but for example, I might go for a walk for 2 weeks, religiously every day, and then I would stop, and then I'd maybe give it a break for 3 days, and then I'd go a day, then miss a day, what did I base it on? I've never really known. I'd wake up and I'd have a feeling that I didn't want to go, and then I'd see a bird fly past my window or something, and I'd go, I'm definitely going. And I just left it quite open to what was happening around me, what my feelings were, and I would just either definitely go or definitely not go. And there'd be too many crows at home, so I'd just go, I need to get away from these crows, go for a walk. And anyway, to me that was a bit weird, but I didn't think it was that weird, and I thought it was okay. And maybe the third thing that was a bit weird: number one, no shoes. Number two, no real predictable pattern of when I'd go. Number three is where I'd walk was pretty basic, but I'd take a few detours. And like sometimes if I saw something up there, I'd go, oh, that's interesting, and I'd go for a walk. So being interested in stuff is not that weird, but that was the third thing that was a little bit weird about how I used to go for a walk. So there I was this morning, not on my morning walk, just on my walk, I guess you'd call it, that I felt like going on. And it's just down near the water's level on Lake Burley, Griffin there in Canberra. It's just, I quite enjoyed walking around there. And then, boom, out of nowhere, just like thunder, crack, I got knocked to the ground. My chin hit the concrete, and I was like, wow. And I thought, I'm in Canberra and I'm in Australia's Capital Territory, I'm getting mugged. So I felt like I was getting mugged, and then this big heavy, another weight jumped on me, and I said, oh, there's two people on me now. And then just as I got used to that and I was processing, I was like, okay, I'm getting mugged, I'm struggling, what's going on here? Then bang, a third person jumped on top of me. And then I was just like, all right. And then it was just too strange. I just had to stop fighting back, and I was like, all right, well, they can have my wallet, which I don't have on me anyway. they can't take my shoes because I ain't got none on. And I was just like, all right, I'm fine. I just stopped struggling, and then I felt one person get off, felt another person get off, and then the person that stayed on my back, I could tell from that point, I was like, oh, these are professionals. And I think the person had their knee in my back and my hands in a way that I couldn't move. I was like professionally stuck on the ground like a well-trained bouncer or something would do. And then my head was still on the concrete. They let my head up just a bit and I could see two guys standing in front of me. And immediately I was thinking, these guys look, I don't know, somewhere between a cop, a bouncer, and like an office worker. So they're just like that security vibe. I was like, so, all right, well, this is different. Wasn't expecting to be taken out by the men in black today, but here we go. And then there's one on the left, one on the right, lakes in the background, and I'm just like, what's going on here? And the guy on the left, he speaks up. I can't even remember what he said. He's on the left and he says something, and immediately I'm like, oh, this guy's very Irish. He's got a very Irish accent. And then the guy on the right speaks up, and I'm going, oh, this guy's very American, like really American, like Southern American, but really quite an authoritative Southern accent. And I just grinned because it was all too weird to take in. I just grinned, and I'm like, just a little, like something was funny. And the American guy pipes up, and I'm not going to do my American accent. I'm not very good at it, but he just says, mate, you today's not a day to be laughing. There's a few things we're going to have to do. Today's not a day for laughing. And I'm like, okay. And then, and I didn't tell them, but the reason I was laughing is because it felt like every joke I've ever heard. It's like an Irishman, an American, and an Australian walk into a bar, and that's like joke in my head, but they clean that joke out of my head pretty quick. They're like, this is serious, you've got some questions to answer. And then, I got the feeling that my safety wasn't really in jeopardy, but it just wasn't a good day. I was like, this has to be dealt with. And then the person behind me walks me like up across the grass, and the two guys are in front of me, and they just went a little bit silent for a while. We get to the car, which pretty much looked like them, like somewhere between a cop car, or they looked like they were somewhere between cops and office workers. The car had that same sort of look, like government-y, security, blending in sort of car. And then clunk, clunk, clunk. I was in first, and then I heard the three clunks, and they all shut their door and got in. Irish man in front of me on the left, American driving on the right side, which is probably pretty strange for him. And then the person next to me, and that's when I saw her, and I was like, oh, it's actually a female. And then I'm like, oh, and I didn't expect that either. She was Asian, and she just scowled at me like, the scowling was why the eyes were like that. And she just scowled at me, and I was just like, rightio. We got track that goes up there, track that goes up there. Yeah, this is a little bit like my walk. I just go wherever. So today we're going uphill. And anyway, she just scowls at me, and I'm like, okay. And they're all giving me this vibe like I've got a lot of questions to answer. I've got something to speak up for, like I've done something wrong. And I'm like, you guys haven't told me what department you're from, what your names are, if you have badges or not, and if you do, what your fucking badge numbers are, and all this stuff. And then I just sort of relaxed again a little bit. I'm just like, okay, this is so ridiculous, I can't fight it. And then the Irish guy pipes up and he's like, what's with the bare feet, mate? In a very strong Irish accent. And I'm like, well, I ain't got shoes on. And then the American guy pipes up and he's like, mate, I've told you, it's not a day to be laughing. You've got some questions to answer. And I'm like, oh, well, I snapped back a bit or something. Like, well, you guys haven't given me your badge number, you haven't given me nothing. Why should I tell you why I got no shoes on? And then I was pretty happy that they were angry. And then I was like, all right, well, I'll answer them. And they said, well, yeah, so why with the no shoes? And I'm like, well, I listened to a TED talk a couple months back, and they said that it's a good way to ground, and you can, stand on the ground and ground. It's a good thing for your whole body and mind. And if you want to take it to the next level, go for a walk without shoes on. So I'm going to do that. So that's what I did. And then they're like, oh yeah, just tag teaming each other, like niggling questions at me. They obviously didn't believe me. And then, so the Irish guy pushes along and says, okay, next thing, why have you been talking to yourself in the park? And I was like, well, I didn't really think I had been talking to myself in the park. And then he's go, well, we've had reports and we've seen it ourselves. You've been talking to yourself in the park. No shoes, talking to yourself in the park, Australian Capital Territory. We need to look at this. And I was like, well, as you know, I'm a common listener of TED Talks, and when I'm listening to TED Talk, I have my wireless earphones in my ear, and sometimes I get interrupted and I get a call, and then I talk back with my wireless earphones, which are now probably in the lake, because when you guys knocked me over, they went flying and they're not in my ears now. So, and I'm talking to you guys, so I'm not talking to myself. And I do not have the wireless earphones to prove that I have wireless earphones. And then they don't see any funny side in anything I've said. I'm like, okay, so they just move on to the next thing. And it's pretty hard to, there's more people up here. Pretty hard to fight with that. So I'm like, okay. Oh, it's hard for them to fight with it. It's just like, okay, well, you've got wireless earphones, fair enough. I'm like, okay, cool. All right, and then they're just going back and forward again. The Asian lady sitting next to me is not really saying nothing. And then the Irish guy pipes up and goes, what about your schedule? But probably in a better Irish accent than that. Oh, we've got a fire down here in the bush. And I was like, well, what about my schedule? He said, it's very unpredictable. It's a little bit suspect. And I'm like, okay, rightio. And he said, we can't, why, you walked yesterday, you didn't walk the day before, and he starts just getting stuck into me about not having a good schedule. I'm like, whatever. I said, well, I've got a very unpredictable schedule. Is that my fault or your fault? I don't know. And I just let it go. And I think he let it go. So it was just like, okay, well, he sort of let it go. He's still suspect of me. How you go, mate? Pretty good. And then, what's that? No, it's a long story. I'm recording a story, and the main character has no shoes. When I've finished it, I'll send it to you if you want. Are you around, you live from around here?
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Yeah, I live over at Desert's place, over that side.
State, eh?
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been...
You're recording a story?
Yeah, do you mind being on it?
No,
that's all right. But yeah, I'm recording myself.
What's the story for?
It's about, I can't let the viewers know, it's not live either.
No.
So it's about how this guy got his job.
Yeah.
And he starts in Canberra.
Yeah.
And then he goes for a walk, and these like dodgy cop guys like knock him over, and then I'm just going through the series of events to how he gets his job in Sydney.
Ah.
But if you're on Facebook?
Me, I am, yeah.
Yeah. If you look me up, I've got heaps of random shit. Alan, A-L-L-A-N. Just having a bit of party, eh?
Just chilling.
Yeah, nice.
Chilling with the land.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I've done some hikes and stuff around here.
A-L-L.
A-N.
Yeah.
Space, and then Saunderson, S-A-U-N.
S-A-U-N.
D-E-R-S-O-N.
Oh.
Yeah, I've done some hikes and stuff through here with fellas. If you scroll back a bit, you'll probably find it.
I'll have a look through it then. I'll have a look a bit later at that.
Yeah, no worries. I'm Alan anyway. Chris. You don't, Chris? No, everyone on here knows your name. All right, bro, I'm going to keep walking. I'll probably come back this way in about 5 or so. All right, cheers, Chris.
I'm looking for a metal plate so we can hook up some stake.
Mm.
all these cunts leaving fucking rubbish in the bush. all
Yeah,
the
it's pretty
time.
gross,
Fucking
eh?
irritating.
Yeah. Well, if I find a piece, I'll let you. I'll bring it back.
Yeah, bring the cunt back.
You might have to cook it on the roof of the car. All right, bro. Thanks, mate. Well, where was I up to? So, yeah, so they're a bit suspect about the schedule, and I didn't get rid of his suspicion, but he just gave up on me a little bit, and he's like, all right, well, we don't trust that you just go walking on random days. You're obviously up to something. And I'm like, well, you figure out what I'm up to then, mate. And then the American guy is like, and we've done a little bit of research, and there's a lot of strange stuff on your history on the internet. And I'm like, well, this just went to the next level. Like, I'm really getting put through the ringer here. They're bloody looking at me. They're really serious. They're looking at me internet history. And he goes, there's a few things about China in there, a few suppliers, a few high businesses almost in the government. And I'm like, okay, well, that's to do with my work. And he's like, yeah, well, very interesting that. We're going to get to the bottom of it. And I'm like, okay, well, no worries. Then the Irishmen tag team again. And we've noticed a lot of your information is encrypted. And I'm like, yeah, it's for my job. I can't just be telling everyone what I do and who my contacts are. And it's like sensitive information. Some of it's just private personally as well. So a lot of my stuff is encrypted. So, and back to the American guy. So what is your job? And I'm like, well, I work for myself. You guys haven't even told me what your job is. So why would I tell you? Anyway, and then this is when the Asian lady speaks up, and she goes, we can't even tell what department you work for. And I'm like, it's like thunder again. Like, I nearly got knocked out of the car. I was like, I was not expecting that ochre bogan accent from this Asian lady, but there's no way she could have put it on. I was like, that was definitely a pretty Australian Aussie accent, that one. So she says, yeah, we don't even know what department you work for. You dog. Sort of like that. But she didn't say dog. But she definitely had an Australian accent. And I was like, all right, Irishman, American, and an Australian woman-ish. And I was like, okay, it sort of hit me like thunder. I was just like, okay, whatever. And I said, I don't work for any department in the government. I said, I work for myself. And she's like, oh yeah, sure, mate. And I'm like, yeah, I work for myself. And then she says, we've also found that you've bought some chemicals. And I'm like, yeah, it's to do with me job. And she goes, and explosives. And I'm like, yeah, it's me job. And then she doesn't believe me either, really. And then then she gets, this bit surprised me. She goes, then we looked up your history of your Google Maps. She's like, you're looking at a whole heap of strange places, up the river, down the river, across the river, around the lake. And she goes, you can understand why we're a bit suspect of you, because if I had to list everything, there's the bare feet, there's the talking to yourself, there's the schedule, there's the contacts in China, there's encrypted messages. And she's like, it's not looking good for you, mate. And I'm like, well, just to let you know, I don't work for China. And she just was not having it. And she's like, not really believing much of what I'm saying. And she goes, we looked at your Google Maps. It doesn't look good, mate. And I'm like, right, mate. And then she's like, and it also seems like who's your mum? And I said, mate, you guys don't even know what my job is. You probably know my name, I'm guessing, but you want to know who my mum is, and you don't, like, fuck off. I didn't say fuck off, but I was like, I'm not telling you about my mum. She goes, well, she's pretty much the only person you talk to that's not encrypted, and she's obviously not your mum. And I said, she's my mum. And then she goes, well, who's your girlfriend then? And I'm like, I don't have a girlfriend. I work a lot. When I'm not working, I'm walking around the lake. And she didn't believe that either, because I'm pretty good looking. And she's like, well, who's your mum? It's obviously, she was pushing towards like it's the code name, like whoever mum is knows some stuff. And And she said, so there's messages there to your mum, like saying that you can't wait for it to go off. It's going to be big, etc., etc. And I'm like, yeah, it's just, my mum knows a lot about my job. I talk to mum about my job. When I'm not talking to my contacts and my suppliers and my people, I'll talk to my mum. I didn't think it was that bad, but I don't know. I guess it's a bit shitty that I don't have a girlfriend, but I'll probably get there one day. So I was about 30 at this time. Anyway, where are we? Walkaraka. There's the Australian government plane up there. Suspect as, mate, suspect as. Anyway, she's like, what are you building up to? And then you actually, this is her talking, she's like, we've actually seen some code words in there. Project Thunder. And I'm like, sort of, yeah, I'm just workshopping a name. I guess you could call it bloody a code name, but yeah, I'm working up to something and it's going to go off like thunder. Sue me. That's like a little Chinese joke. I think Sue me Inc. is Japanese. Not sure. Anyway, so they're just not having it. And then she's like, and so you don't have a girlfriend? And I'm like, no, I don't. And I think about making a funny joke about asking her out, but I'm like, no worries. And then anyway, we're driving around Canberra. It just seems like we're driving in circles. And then I said, where are we going? Because I look on Google Maps quite a bit. I sort of know the lay of the land pretty well. I said, where are we going? And they said, never you mind. And then my Asian lady friend says, we're going to the office. You've got more questions to answer. I'm like, all right. Well, before I go into any office, I need names and badge numbers, and I need a bit more information than what you guys have given me. And then she's like, all right. And then things go a bit silent in the car. And then I'm like, all right, it's awkward. And we're just driving along. And I'm like, all right. And then my Asian lady friend looks at me and she's like, then she starts telling them where to go in the front. She goes, go left up here. And they're like, not really trusting her. And then go right, take left, like just directing from the back seat. And I'm like, well, I sort of trust this woman more than I trust these other two Wallies. So I'm just feeling a bit better, but not really. And everyone's feeling a bit weird, like, where's she going? We pull up at a shopping centre and I'm like, oh, this is dodgy, but I feel good because it's a public space. I'm not going to get bloody killed or anything. And then, so we go into the shopping centre. Just outside the shopping centre, a little cafe with a real interesting name that I can't tell you. But anyway, we sit down and just as the two men are about to sit down, she says, leave me with him. You guys go shopping, buy yourself some whatever you want to buy each other. Go shopping, I'm going to deal with this. And then we sit down, we have a chat. Ow. And then the ground gets a bit rocky and hard. And we have a hard conversation. And then she's like, as the guys disappear, they're not real keen about it, but they're like, all right, she knows her stuff. And we sit down and we have a chat. And she's like, what's up? Tell me the truth. I said, have you got any wires or anything on you? Are you recording this? And I didn't really care if she was or not. I was just giving it back to her a bit. She goes, sort of pats herself down. And I'm like, can I pat you down? And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay, I trust that you don't have a wire. And again, I didn't really care if she did. But we had a chat and she's like, what is it? And I'm like, I just told her what my job is, just told her the truth of everything. She's like, oh, well, that's pretty interesting. And I hadn't completely convinced her, but she was definitely into my story. And then she goes, well, if you love your mum so much and she's got so much to do with your story, you wouldn't mind if I gave her a call. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, you can give my mum a call. So I ring up my mum whose name is Marilyn. And then I put Marilyn, my mum, onto the phone, onto this lady, and they're having a chat, and mum, and she's just, mum's just confirming everything, and then mum says, you know, I'll have a chat to Alan, that's my name, I'll have a chat to Alan off speakerphone, thanks. And then I get the phone off mum, and then I'm sitting there looking at this Asian lady. She's not scowling as much, she's pretty angry still. And then mum's like, oh, she's a keeper. Keep this one, like, where'd you get her from? And I said, oh no, she's pretty interested in my life, and she's interesting, yeah. And I sort of just let mum talk a bit and let mum tell me how good of a match we would be. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, I guess. It's a bit of a weird day. I'll have to tell you about it later on. And then we're sitting there, we have a coffee, and then our conversation goes off. Oh, there's those other people walking. Our conversation disappears from all this suspense into just sort of like just talking about where she's from, where I'm from, where I grew up, where I've grown up, how I generally walk wherever I walk and explore. I sort of go walkabout in different places. And we just had a real good chat. And again, I really didn't care if she had a wire on. I was just like, this is just a good chat. And then the Irishman and the American come back, and then they don't sit down because they're just not sold. They're just like still suspect. And then they say, well, what's the go? And then she just lays it on them, and she says, all right. So she gets her little list out, and she's like, just like the sound of thunder. She goes, he's barefoot because he just is barefoot. He talks to himself because he's got a wireless phone, wireless earphones, and he does a lot of his work while he's walking around. His schedule is just an intuitive schedule. He goes walking when he wants, he goes not walking when he wants. And he makes his phone calls, does a lot of his work while he's walking around. They all check out. The suppliers are legitimate. The ones that aren't, it's not because of him. There's some dodgy stuff in China. It's our suspect here, if I can call you that, Alan, is he checks out. It's all good, guys. It's a misunderstanding. What else does she say? She said the encrypted stuff is, Signal is encrypted. Like most people have encrypted stuff these days. So that's not that suspect. She gets out her list and she says he doesn't work for a department. He works for himself. He's in explosives because he does fireworks, and there's a firework event coming up, and he was looking for a name for the event, for his fireworks within the event, what he was going to call it. So everything checks out. It's just a misunderstanding, and I could see that the American and the Irishman were actually buying it, and they're like, because it was the truth, and so that's where I started my job in working in fireworks. And then they basically let me go. Was there anything else that they didn't believe me on? Yeah, and my looking around with the Google Maps all the time is just because I'm curious where the wind's going to go. I'm curious where the chemicals that I use go. Rain. I just need to know the land when I'm doing fireworks. Contingency plans, whole range of things. I won't go into it, it's very complex. And that's why I look on, and I just have an interest in maps. When I'm thinking, I usually open a map and I just look at the map. And where I end up on the map is usually pretty significant to me. And then she's like, and anyway, that's how I operate. And anyway, she asks the two guys to go shopping again, and then we just sit down, chat a bit further. I don't need to give her my number because she's already got it. I said to her, if you want to call me, you call me whenever you want. I can go through more of this stuff with you. If you need a hand with anything, any hand with security stuff in Canberra, I might know a bit. And then she, as we're sitting there, she pulls out a folder and she goes, oh, we've got this, I shouldn't be showing you this, but I'm going to show you anyway. And then she pulls out this folder. It's got nothing to do with me. For me, it feels like it does, but she's not connecting it with me. And then she's like, right, we've got this case. There's a few real estate deals going down up on this part of the river. And I said, oh, Molongolo River. And she's like, yeah, Molongolo. She goes, how do you know that? I said, you know, I'll look around on Google, I walk a lot. And she goes, and I said, yeah, that's, and I just gave her a lot of information about the land and residential things, businesses, government land, local land, bylaws, whole range of things. I seem to have to know a lot to do explosives in the capital of Australia. I've got a very specific knowledge of laws, maps, and laws, maps, and protection. So I have very specific knowledge, and then she sort of just understands that we're talking about it. And every time we go to investigate something, we were there for half an hour looking at this case. It was about residential versus private purchases, and every time she brought something up, I'd just open up my map, and then I would find where the issue is on the map. Like literally, like, okay, this is this place getting sold. I'd look at it and I'd scroll one way, and she goes, hey, yeah, don't scroll that way. And I'd be like, well, that's where my brain tells me to go, up creek. And she goes, no, you gotta go down creek. And then I'm like, I don't work like that. I just go wherever I want. And she's like, and we just work through it. And we realised that, you know, intuitively I look at maps and I find stuff out. And then when we were working together, me and her, we would end up in these spots on the map where I wasn't quite comfortable. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And we'd talk about it, and then we'd get closer to the truth of that. I'm always surprised when I go on these map walkabouts and intuitive walks and stuff. But I always felt comfortable when I got wherever I got. When I ended up in these strange places with this woman, I was like, oh, I like it, but I don't understand it. And we were just finding out some really sensitive and important information about these cases, about land rights, purchasing, the future, upstream future, downstream future, and just working some stuff out. And then we're like, oh, okay, we work together pretty well. Yeah, we do. So then, the both of us had a bit of a change in career. She got transferred to Sydney. There's a lot of purchases down there. She got transferred to Sydney, spoke to some people, and got me a job in the government, and we don't know what to call the department yet, but I would call it, my suggestion for it was Backseat Drivers Molongolo, and Molongolo means like the sound of thunder. It's an Indigenous word. And I don't know if that's the name that we should call our project in our department, but she's still coming up with some ideas. And that's how I came to be working in Sydney in the government, in privacy and security, and a few other things. Land, oh, this bit feels good. Land, rights, purchasing, future, past, whole range of things. We just sit down, we workshop things, and then when we present to groups within the government and in the private sector, we both have a plan in our head what we're going to say, and we do a little act, and we sort of fight with each other as we're presenting, because we genuinely have different opinions and different intuitions. And then we end up in these places and everyone claps. And we're like, thanks. And then we leave and we have a coffee, and then we go, what the fuck did we just say? And we're like, we don't know. Let's just keep getting paid. And we're like, yeah. And that is the story of how I met my wife, came to live in Sydney, and got to work in the department, which doesn't have a name yet, but I really want to call my project Backseat drivers, Molongolo. Backseat drivers like the sound of thunder. I reckon it might rain tonight. And that's my story. I feel like I'm missing something, but that might be because I'm doing it by myself, not having a chat with someone. Anywho's, let's clap to say that we're finished. Who owns that car there? That looks bloody suspect, that does. I'm a bloody weirdo, walking around with bare feet. All right, we've got someone chasing me with a fishing rod. All right. So thanks for listening to my story. That's my car. I'll be in that soon. I got back to this bridge here where I started. These people were coming down the stairs when I walked over here, walking their dog, and I've sort of been following them without realising. A couple with 3 dogs. Anywho's, this story was meant to be 15 minutes long, but I had a feeling it was going to go a bit longer. Yeah, I'll keep going over the bridge. Yeah, so a lot of my stories are about I'm starting to realise are about the masculine and feminine. They might even just be love stories, which is pretty ageless. So that was a bit of a love story, but it's about some deeper themes there of land, protection, masculine, feminine, and a few things. That's the type of stuff that I talk about, think about, write about. And if you want to see more, check out my stories on Big Al Story. There's a few love stories, a few masculine like initiation things, and just an explorative sort of place. Big Al Story on YouTube, Big Al Story on Instagram. And I've just, oh, here comes a train. I'm just starting to realise that the reason I made this storytelling spot, Big Al Story, was to just like get wild. Was just to get wild and not have anything like encasing me, like, because I do like men's work events and stuff and fathering education. And I feel that then whenever I tell a story, it just goes way off track, like, and it cannot be. It's destructive. It's destructive to any straightforward, masculine, structured idea I come up with. My creativity goes, you reckon? I might turn right. And goes everywhere. So just in the last couple of days, I've recognised that my creativity is probably my feminine. And as much as I've been moving forward with men's work, I'm like, oh, the true magic is in my feminine. It's in the coming together of masculine and feminine, whether that's inside a person, like I feel like I've just closed that gap a little, or whether it's between people, or whether it's between groups of people. Like, there's 2 little ducks down there, probably a male one and a female one. I'll see if I can zoom in for you. No, I can't. Anyway, trust me, there's some ducks down there. And yeah, coming together of the masculine and feminine is more important than any men's work I've ever done. I'll go for a walk that way, or that way, or that way, or that way. Last question. That goes inland. Would you say that's upstream or downstream? I don't know. It's always fascinated me. Thanks for listening. Check out Big Al Story. Check out Big Al Story Instagram, Big Al Story YouTube. And if you want to see more of my masculine fatherly stuff, Check out creative.behaviour.dad on Instagram, or Facebook. It's just my name, Alan Saunderson. It's the same name as was in that story just then. And check out my feminine chaos. Thanks for listening. Oh, last thing, I've got a daily check-in system for men. If you're interested in that, which is the most, apart from my storytelling, it's the most lively, fiery thing in my life at the moment. I've been doing it myself for 2 years, checking in with 2 other men every day, so 3 of us. It's called the 3G process. If you're interested in that, reach out to me. I'm just about to get a website and open it up to other men, because it's been a really powerful process for me. Now I'm talking and not having any direction, but I'm liking it, you know. Just gonna head down these stairs, go shopping, get some shoes on, post my story. The guys down the bush might be able to see it then. Might walk back up there and get their details. All right, thanks for listening. Aho.